Hello, 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 y bendición. Welcome to Pero Who Am I? A podcast about self discovery and the life of a modern day Latina with your host, Lisa Marie. Hey, hey, hey. Hope you guys are doing good. I know it's been a minute since I've been on the microphone, and I just want to really sit and apologize for that. It's just been, I can't even say it's been one of those weeks or it's just been crazy hectic. I'm not lying. It's the truth. It really has been. I started doing a part time job to, earn a little bit extra income on the side. And I realized that the extra income on the side just wasn't worth the time that I was spending away from my family. And it wasn't worth putting my life to the side. And it's basically what I was doing. I was going from my 9 to 5 job to my 5 to 10 p.m. job. And just, it wasn't worth it. And so I apologize. I haven't been consistent with this podcast. And going forward, I plan on it. I'm setting myself up to do this. I'm holding myself accountable. I started this podcast as a journey, and I'm bringing you guys along it, so that you can discover along with me where it is that we belong in this world that we call life. We have ups and downs. We have complications that come along the way. We have good times. I hope that for you, your good times outweigh your bad times, just the way my good times have definitely been outweighing my bad times. I've had some changes happening um, aside from, building a house, having to move back in with my mom for a couple months while this house is being built. It's one thing when you move back home with your mom and it's just you, or, it's just you and your kid, because, it happens. But it's another thing when it's you, your fiance, and your 3 kids. Like, we all just uprooted my mom's life basically and kind of taken over a piece of her world. And, God willing, hopefully it's not for much longer as this house continues to be built. But I'm also in the midst of planning a wedding. And at one point, we had said that we were going to do a little mini ceremony, kind of just elope on New Year's Eve. And instead, we've decided we're just going to go ahead and do the full blown wedding. It's going to probably be at a much smaller scale than I had envisioned my fairy tale wedding was going to be. But at the end of the day, I'm marrying the man that I love, my best friend, the guy that I just can't picture life without. And if it's on a smaller scale, I'm totally okay with that. We're going to take that money, invest it into the house and into a future honeymoon that we're looking on planning already. So it is what it is. Life has happened. Um, it's no excuse as to why I haven't been consistent with this podcast. I know that I look at my fellow podcasters and I see that they're consistent and I see that their numbers are growing. And, you know, a part of me is like envious because their numbers are growing. They're taking a full advantage of the platform that they've been given and that they're working for. I'm not even going to say that they've been given because these people are working their asses off. So I'm not going to say that they were given, they are working for it. So, with that said, this week's Spanish lesson of the day is going to be some very useful Spanish greetings that you can use when you're out and about. And so the first one is going to be ¿Cómo estás? Everyone should know. How are you? ¿Qué tal? How are you doing? ¿Qué pasa? What's happening? ¿Cómo te va? How are you doing? That's another way of saying that. Buenos días. Good morning. ¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name? And adios, which means goodbye. So that's going to bring me to my next segment of my show, which this week, Dear Diary, we're going to have a little conversation with my aunt Yolanda. I'm going to bring her on and we just talk a little bit, in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, about the battle that she went through as a breast cancer warrior. So that's what we're going to continue to call her. So without further ado, here we go. Hey, hey, hey. So I just wanted to start off by letting you guys know that Idea to Launch Academy is going to be launching its intensive course with the one and only Carla Ramirez. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast and you're just not sure how to get started, I highly, highly suggest that you go on over to Idea to Launch Academy and get signed up for her intensive course. Carla will walk you step by step on everything you need, from the equipment all the way down to the outlines. She guides you every step of the way. And with her intensive course, you meet with her on a weekly basis, and she's literally right there to guide you through the entire process. So go to Idea to Launch Academy. I will provide a link in the show description so that you can just click on it, get signed up, and be on your way. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So today I am joined with my aunt Yolanda, and we are going to discuss on how she is a breast cancer warrior. And I say warrior because I don't like the term survivor. Um, and my aunt Yolanda, like I said, has beat cancer. And so, Titi, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yolanda Velez, and I am going to be 53 in what, like almost 2 weeks or a little less than 2 weeks. Um, I am a wife, mother, grandmother, aunt, all of those, nouns. I have a daughter, two stepchildren, um, two beautiful granddaughters, and a grandson on the way. And I'm married to a wonderful husband who was there for me during, one of the most difficult times of my life. So there's my
Awesome.
introduction.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, definitely. Like I said, today's topic is going to be about breast cancer, and it being October. It is a very important month that breast cancer awareness is highlighted, but it should be highlighted every day of the year, not just in October. So,
Yes.
being that my aunt is a warrior, she's going to give us a little bit details about what she went through and how she found out. Um, and just some of the questions that I've had along the way, being on the sidelines, not really knowing what she went through. So to start off, how old were you when you were diagnosed, and what stage of cancer did you have?
Yeah. When you say October, it's kind of bittersweet, right? Because October is my birthday month. you know it happened to be also my grandmother's birthday, one of my niece's birthday, so and my brother's birthday. So I have like great things in October. And then I actually got diagnosed the week after I turned 50.
Mhm.
So I had this big 50 birthday, and then a week later I got diagnosed.
And that was what,
um
three? So we're saying 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Okay.
Yes, 3 years ago in 2017. I had just lost my job. And I had a few days after that, I had a mammogram already scheduled. And so I went for the mammogram, no big deal, And a couple of weeks later, I get, a call, or maybe it was like a week later, I get a call and they tell me that I need a diagnostic mammogram. And no big deal. I've had diagnostic. I had lumpy breasts. And so having a diagnostic was very, common for me. So I didn't think it was a big deal. I actually didn't even tell my husband. I didn't tell my husband's name is Angel. I didn't tell Angel because I didn't think it was a big deal. I went when I went in for the diagnostic. The young lady, she did the diagnostic mammogram, which is it's pretty intense. It's more painful than a regular mammogram, because they really, really press down, and having large breasts is not, it was not pleasant. And so when she got done, she said to me, okay, I'm going to go check to see if you need an ultrasound. She comes back and she says, oh no, you're good to go. Go change your clothes, get your clothes back on. You're good to go. You can go home. And just as I'm starting to walk out, somebody comes in and says to her, hey, do the ultrasound just in case. And really, you know, I truly believe that God just intervened,
Mhm.
um, because we did the ultrasound. So I said, okay, so we did the ultrasound, and I had not seen the results, but then I received a call, and I was told that I needed a biopsy, and I was like, really? It's like, yes, we saw something in the diagnostic, and you need a biopsy. So one of the things that I learned, I had an appointment with my primary doctor a couple of days later. So I went, to her, and when she saw the results, like her face kind of changed, which I had not actually seen the report. I had just received the call about the biopsy. And so her face kind of changed, and she said to me, listen, I got your mammogram results. And she said to me, I am going to send you to a breast specialist. And she said, you really need to go see a breast specialist. The radiology place, the radiation place, they cannot dictate like what type of biopsy. It's better for you to go to a specialist, to a doctor that is specializes in that, and that doctor will be able to tell you what kind of biopsies, because there's actually a biopsy is not the same for everybody. They have different types of biopsy. They have some that are just remove the needle, or then they have one that's guided by an ultrasound. So they have different types of
I would have been
biopsy.
freaking out.
Huh?
I said I would have been freaking out at this point.
Yes. Oh, needles. We'll talk more about those. So anyway, I went, I went uh, to what I thought was just going to be a consultation. Once again, I did not tell my husband. I really didn't tell anyone except one of my really good friends, because she was a nurse, and I just wanted, to get some advice from her, and advice on the doctor that I was referred to. And he's a great doctor. She told me absolutely, if I was going through anything, that's who I would want to go. So I went by myself, thinking, I'm going there, he's going to talk to me, and then he's going to tell me what kind of biopsy I need, and I'll make that appointment. But one thing about my doctor is, not only, is he going to look at the reports, but he also told me, even though they did an ultrasound, he said, I do my own. So he, right then and there, did the ultrasound, and he's talking to the nurse, and I hear him, yeah, yep, I see, and I'm wondering, like, what does he see? What's going on? And so when he got done with it, he said to me, I know you have a lot of questions. And he said to me, I'm going to ask them for you and answer them. And so I was like, okay. And so
Interesting.
he says, do you have breast cancer? Yes, you do. And I'm looking at him like, what? And so after that, he's like, okay, will you need, chemo? Probably. Will you need radiation? Yes, probably. Will you need a mastectomy? We're gonna, um, we'll talk about that later. He said, what stage are you? You're 2B going on 3. And not only do you have it in your breast, but you also have it in one of your lymph nodes in the right side. And one of the things I'm really grateful for is the fact that he did do his own ultrasound, because the place that I went to get the diagnostic and the ultrasound, they did not catch the lymph node. It was not detected when they did it. So he did a more thorough ultrasound. So he's telling me all of this, and I'm just sitting there thinking, this man just told me I have cancer.
Yeah, that
And I'm here
initially.
by myself, and now I have to tell everybody. Now I have to tell Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't even know I'm at the doctor.
Let alone that you have breast cancer.
Let alone that, exactly, that I have breast cancer. And so, I try to stay as composed as possible. I had, the tear coming down my face, and he was like, listen, I want you here tomorrow. I will do the biopsy tomorrow. I mean, that is how like on point he was. Because
awesome.
when you get that kind of news, okay, and I don't know about anybody else, but me, I'm not into fluff, right? Don't sugarcoat it for me. Tell me what I have and what you're going to do to help me. That's what I want to know. And so he told me, you know what, I'm going to schedule you tomorrow. I want you to come in for the biopsy. He says, but he says, I've been doing this for many years. I will be very surprised. Then I get to come home to tell Angel, my husband.
Fun.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the hardest things once you are diagnosed, is to tell people, especially someone like me, because usually I'm the one that tries to be the strong one for everybody. I'm usually the one, that tries to be rock solid. And so I've just been told something where I'm going to need every single bit of strength that I have within me, to be able to get through it.
Correct.
Because, there's so many questions that go on in your head. And the thing is that, right away, people, think that, okay, I hear the word cancer and you automatically think that it's a death sentence.
Correct.
And fortunately, that is not always the case. And probably most of the time lately, it's not the case. So it all depends on the stages and, when you find out and all that stuff and the treatments that you decide to do, so all of that, depends on that. So I came home, and I was crying, and I was praying to God,
I can imagine.
and I said to him, God, I don't care if I lose all of my hair. I don't care if I have to go through all that treatment. I don't care if I lose my breasts. All I want is to be here. I want to be here to see my daughter, grow, graduate. I want to see her get married, and I want to see at least one of my grandchildren from her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stayed here at home. I was on the couch because Angel was working, and I knew the time that he was coming in. And when he came in, I was sitting on the couch, and he looks at me, and he immediately says, what is it? I know something's going on. I could see it in your face. I can feel it. What is going on? And so I had to break the news to him. And the look on his face was like disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And my next words were, I need you to be strong because I can't be strong for the both of us.
Right.
And that's just, you kind of, for me anyway, I went into self-preservation mode. I tried, okay, I can't I cannot be there to pick you up out of, if you get into a pit. I can't do it right now, because I need my strength. And so, it was difficult. It was difficult. I know that it was a shock to him, and, and he just hugged me, and assured me, that everything will be okay and that we were going to fight it, and, and beat it, And so, um, like I said, the hardest thing is telling people, we waited to tell Ariana. I was very, when you have to tell your child,
It's hard.
I don't think it's something that any child expects to hear, even though she wasn't a little kid. She was already, we had just actually celebrated her 16th birthday, in the beginning of the year. And so when I went, when the way we told her, we waited, because her godfather was actually out of the country at the time when I was diagnosed. And so he was coming back in like a week, and we waited because we wanted her to have as much support as possible. I didn't want to just be with her and tell her that. We wanted her to have people that, her godparents and god sister and brother, who, we're like an extended family.
Mm-hmm.
I also was able to go to her school and speak to the guidance counselor, who's actually a breast cancer fighter. She was actually diagnosed. It had already spread to other areas, so she's got metastatic breast cancer, which is a whole, another um, a huge battle, because that is something that once you are diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, you're fighting for the rest of your life.
And
That
that's
is
when
it.
it spreads all over your body,
That
right?
is when it spreads. It spreads on more than one area
Okay.
in your body to other maybe organs and stuff. So when I talked to her, and which she was very sweet, she said to me, I never want to welcome anybody into this club, but just know that I am your sister. And so, my Ariana was going to a Christian high school, and I am so happy that, because I don't know, maybe she would have gotten the same support in a public school. I don't know that, but the fact that she was going to a Christian school, she had a whole school community, that rallied around her and were able to, be there for her and comfort her on those moments where she did break down. So that's why I went to talk to the guidance counselor in the event that, you know, I was telling her that Sunday, in the event on Monday, or even during that whole week, it broke down. She had somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there were certain people that I can tell, and there were certain people that I sent somebody else to tell.
Like me.
Yes,
Yeah, I found out from my
like you and your
mom.
sisters, and you know,
Mhm.
yes, and I'm grateful for that, because I do know that, your mom is very strong, and so I knew that she would be able to not only tell the two of you, but to tell my younger brother, Fern,
Mhm.
to tell him, because I knew that he was one that was going to take it the hardest, because, Fern is,
He's a baby.
he's 10 years younger than me, and he's like my son, right? And
Mhm.
so, telling him was going to be hard for me to do, which was a good call, because I understand he did not have,
Mhm.
I had my other sister tell my younger sister and my dad, and then the other person, the last person that I told in the family before, I kind of let everybody else know, was mom.
Yeah, grandma.
Because I didn't know how she was going to react. And she was already a 2-time cancer survivor, not breast cancer, but cancer and, the vocal cords and the um, larynx. So as her being my mother, I thought, this was going to be really difficult and she was just going to break down. But instead, what I witnessed was just an incredible strength. When I told her and she looked at me and she says, I was prepared to just have like a sob fest, like,
Full out tears and all. Yep.
yeah, pull out tears, snots coming down, that kind of ugly cry, And so she just looks at me and she says, well, she says, you know, look at me. She says, I got a diagnosis and I just listened to the doctor and I did what the doctor told me and I'm here, I'm still here.
Mhm.
And so I thought to myself, oh, wait a minute. You're not going to cry. I'm not
I'm
going to
not gonna
cry,
cry. Yep.
And so she just gave me, that strength at that moment, where I thought I was just going to, get into a ball in a corner and just start bawling. So, you know, so telling people, that's the one thing that I have to say. I just know who you're talking to. If somebody's going through it, if you don't feel like you have to tell everybody, um, I once my family knew, and it was right before Christmas, where it was actually after I had my second chemo treatment and I had to shave my hair
Mm-hmm.
because it was coming out in these clumps and it was quite comical because it just looked like what I call a rat's nest, right? It was really bad in the back. And so I had my friend shave it and she came over and she shaved it for me. And I actually posted it on Facebook, the end results, just the hair, And so I explained it that way, of what was going on. And just the amount of people that, responded and just encouraging words. It was pretty amazing. I had a lot of people, praying for me. I had a lot of people coming to me, um, just this just giving me a lot of support and I'm so thankful for that. I'm looking at the question.
I have, so for those of you, I have a couple questions that I wanted to make sure we covered, and so she's
Yes.
staring at them.
Yeah.
So you said you had you had Angel, you had my mom, you had your sister, so you had this little nest of support. I
Hmm.
know you also had like your friends and stuff like that. One of the things for my listeners, my aunt is very strong in her faith, and she is not mentioning it, but she's told us along the way that God kept telling her, or kept telling those around her, that wait, do this testing, where the doctor said, wait, do the ultrasound just in case. Like, how do you feel that your faith helped you along this journey?
Wow. Like, just in life itself, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have faith. I you know, um some of the things that did happen were even before I was diagnosed, there were signs that I was getting. I had went to a conference, a women's conference, and I already knew that I was getting the diagnostic mammogram. And the I had a woman who we were I went with a group of ladies and we all wanted to sit together. And so we were trying to reserve like some seats. And this woman went right past the girl that was at the edge of the aisle and decided she was going to sit in the middle. Well, we're at a Christian women's conference. We're not going to, have a fight about it, right?
Right.
We're going to be like, okay, no problem. Sit there. We're good. We'll just sit around you. And it wasn't really in the friendliest way that she like sat down and was like that kind of thing. Anyway,
Hmm.
but during the like maybe about half an hour later during the worship service, I had my eyes closed and I was just, just worshiping. It was just sweet. I mean, there were like probably about 1,000 women in that room at the time, obviously pre-COVID time, right? So um, what all of a sudden, as I had my eyes closed, all of a sudden, this, I feel somebody holding my hand, and it was, and I looked to the side, and it was the same woman, and she looked at me and she said, the Holy Spirit is telling me to pray for you. And I looked at her and I was like, okay, thank you, for your obedience. And she did. She prayed for me. And then I had another woman who approached me also, and she was telling me how there was a path that I was going to take, and God was opening up, like, in Moses when the seas parted open. That's what it was going to be like. The seas were being parted, and that what I was going to go through, my family was all going to watch me,
Mm-hmm.
see what I was, how I was reacting and stuff. And so I just feel like that was just kind of God just telling me, you're going to go through something and it's not going to be easy, but I've got you. So yeah, without faith, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people that don't believe or might believe in different. I believe in Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. And I truly believe that, I don't think I would have gotten through this the way that I did if I did not have Jesus in my life. And if I didn't have a strong, community of believers to be there for me. At the time I belonged to a pretty, big church, and I had been there for years, and I had so many people that were there for me, praying for me, and not only praying, but, people bringing food, people helping us financially, because don't forget, I lost my job. I had
Mm-hmm.
lost my job, and here's the thing, I was collecting unemployment. And one thing that I learned, you know, is that if you're on unemployment and they ask you that question, are you able to work? And when the answer is no, because I'm going through chemo right now, they cut your benefits off
Mm-hmm.
right then and there.
Yep.
So I had zero income for almost a year, for about a year. I had zero income. So financially, it was very difficult for us. But thankfully, like I said, I truly believe that God just sent so many people um, to help us, you know. And I'm not talking about little things, I'm talking about big things.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of people, I had my sister who helped pay for my daughter's school. She was going to a private school, and she didn't want her to have to be pulled out of school. I mean, after finding out, such terrible news, then, to be pulled out of school, that would have been just probably too much for her. And she was already in her junior year. So,
Mm-hmm.
so just my faith, I can't go anywhere without my faith. Okay. That is my walk. That is my strength. That is what gives me the strength every single day. So yes.
So
um
once you found out you had it,
mhm.
and you start this process, what was like from finding out you had it, what were the next steps that you had to go through?
Okay. You know how we talked about needles and you said the biopsy? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Not only did I have to have, okay, not only did I have to have the biopsy, I had my breast cancer, which by the way, I haven't mentioned. Okay. I was diagnosed with one of the most common form of cancer. So I have an invasive ductal carcinoma.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what that is like in your milk ducts. So after that, I had to get all sorts of tests. I had to get an MRI done. Now, if you've never had, hopefully nobody out there has ever had to have this, right? Well, it's, the reality is that some people may have. But anyway, so the MRI was really interesting because what they do is, first of all, you have to be face down. The other thing is they actually put your breasts like into like almost like these holes, right? Like face down. So picture yourself facing down with your breasts just hanging out into these holes with your arms up above your head, and you have to be in that position for like 20 minutes. Okay. So what happened was, so there's needle, right? There's a needle because you have to get the contrast. And
Right.
so when I got the results of that, when we got those results, they say that there was something on the left side that looked suspicious. And so they recommended a biopsy. So I had to go back for a second biopsy, which, by the way, the biopsy was not as horrible as I thought it was going to be. Yes, you feel some pressure and like the most thing that bothered me was the clicking noise that it made, because you knew that it was taking a chunk from your body.
Yes.
that that was like the most unnerving thing. But anyway, so I had to go for the second biopsy. And so when those results came in, what it said was, the results were fine, they were benign, that one was not malignant. But then the recommendation was come back in 6 months.
Okay.
And so MRI, you have to get an echocardiogram. You have to get a bone density, because when you're getting all these treatments, it affects different things. Chemo can affect your heart. Some of the medications they give you can affect your bones. And so they have to get all of these baseline tests done. Then, so I was diagnosed in October. I started chemo in December. Okay. So, and it was the end of October that I was diagnosed, the beginning of December. Another hard thing is the weight, right? Because they tell you have cancer, the first thing you just want it out of your body, take it out.
Right.
What do we do to get rid of it? And so it's kind of like, it's all a process. You start seeing different doctors, I had to go see an oncologist, and so from there, they did a PET scan as well. More needles. So the PET scan, what the PET scan does is, that's another exam that's pretty, and I forget what the acronym stands for, but anyway, what it does is it scans. And so it's the reason why they did do the PET scan is any other areas in your body, light up, I guess, when they're looking at it, to see if it has spread anywhere else. And thankfully that came back, where it was just in the one lymph node and in the right breast. And then chemo. So chemo, there's different kinds of chemos. That's another thing that I learned, that chemo is not just one type. Depending on the type of cancer you have, there's different types of chemo. So when I had to start chemo, there were 2 different kinds of chemo that I was going to have to take. What I was told, I was going to have 4 rounds of what they call, AC chemo, and I can't even pronounce the name, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But this particular chemo is known as the Red Devil. Many people call it that, Red Devil. I had somebody in my online support group say, I'm not going to call it the Red Devil, I'm going to call it the blood of Jesus, because it's going to help me get all this cancer out. And I was like, amen. But anyway, it is like, it's red. It's like a red substance. And so with that type of cancer chemo, I if you are afraid of needles,
That's not the one.
you get another thing, chemo, when you get chemotherapy, okay, they give you a lot of stuff beforehand, even before they give you the chemo.
Hmm.
So I had to have, they give you like Benadryl, and they give you all this anti-nausea medication before, and that's all, in the IV.
Hmm.
Which I didn't mention. One of the other things that I had to do even before I got the chemo was get a port put in.
Hmm.
And so a chemo port is a little device. They put it right underneath your skin so that basically, if you have the port, it saves your veins, because chemo takes a long time. It could
Yeah.
take anywhere, from a couple of hours to sometimes 8 hours, depending on your course of treatment. And so having something like that, if you're doing it strictly through the veins, can cause a lot of issues, with your veins. So my doctor recommended me to get the port. And so I did, which I'm really grateful for, because I can't even imagine doing all of that through just, the
Your
arm.
arm. Yeah.
And so like I said, when they put those IVs in, there was also a shot, and I don't know what it was, and I don't know, it may have been the Red Devil, but there was a shot that I had to get on my stomach.
Hmm.
That is not a good, like, when you think about it, that's not a place you want a shot.
No.
But even though I hate needles, who likes needles? No, nobody likes it. Oh, I just kept praying and just thinking, Lord, just let me get through this. And really, this is what's going to save my life. So I need to do this. And so I need to be strong. And now, side effects from this particular one were really bad. Thankfully, I did not get sick, like, throwing up. I
Hmm.
didn't have that side effect. Thank you, Lord. Like, your child, and you saved her from that. Thank you very much.
Did you lose
um,
your appetite or anything like that?
so you lose all sorts of stuff with food. There's certain stuff that you just cannot eat. What I did mentally, because you need your strength. And so I would make sure that I ate by certain hours, you know, even if it was, because one of the things, like when I was taking the first kind of chemo, was I needed like crunchy stuff,
Hmm.
like potato chips, stuff like that. Like, it was a texture thing. But stuff like chicken, ugh, no, I couldn't eat it, and that's all I ate.
Hmm.
Um, Things that I could tolerate: beef and seafood. Okay, somebody joked around and said, "Oh yeah, the expensive stuff."
Right.
So, but it was just, a chicken tasted horrible to me. Pork, no way. Mind you, it was around Christmas time. I couldn't have any
Right.
pernil. I tried to eat a little piece, and I just spit it right out. It just tasted horrible to me. Um, so there were, an obviously side effect. By the first chemo, my hair started to fall out. By the second, it was in clumps, and I just had it shaved. Um, Tired. Think about your day where you have felt exhausted, and then multiply it by like 1,000.
Right.
That is what chemo does to your body.
That sounds horrible.
It really does. My head was in a cloud. It was hard to process things. Um, I mean, to be honest with you, during that time, I was home because, number one, when you do go through chemo, it just depletes so much out of your body, that you have to be really careful not to get sick,
Mm.
not to be around people that are sick. So I was pretty much isolated at home. It was during December. The flu was all over the place.
Yep.
Um, and also there was a horrible like stomach virus that was going around at the same time. So I stayed home even from church. And to be honest with you, and my head was so cloudy that I couldn't really even see this, look at the service online. Like basically, I was home most of the time, sitting on the couch, staring at the TV, watching stuff like Say Yes to the Dress. Okay, anything that didn't require me to really think too much, where I could just stare at the TV and that's it. You know, um, hot flashes. I would sit there, battling with the blanket. I put the blanket on, take it off, put the blanket on, take it off, constantly.
I can imagine. I
Um,
battle hot flashes now.
yeah, it was so weird. And for me, when I shaved my head and then you lose all your hair,
Hmm.
eyebrows, eyelashes, all your hair. Okay. Um, the thing was that that I found annoying while I was sitting on the couch was I had this enormous amount of heat coming out of my head. Okay.
Hmm.
It was just this enormous amount of heat. I could not wear a scarf on my head.
Hmm.
And there's no way I was going to wear a hat. And we're talking about December, okay, and January. Even though we're in Florida, it still gets cold. And so
Right.
when I would maybe put a hoodie real quick if I went out, but I walked around bald. I, I,
Is
I
awesome because a
know,
lot of women want to cover that. They want to wear the scarves, they want to wear the hats
I
or wigs.
know, I see it all the time because I think that's one of the biggest things, especially for us as women.
Hmm.
Like one of the biggest things that I've seen, people are like, oh, I'm going to lose my hair. And honestly, for me, I was
Hmm.
like, I made a deal with God. I didn't care. Like,
Hmm.
just, I don't care if I don't have hair, if it's going to, lead me closer to me getting cured.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so I walked around bald, thankfully people said I looked good. Hopefully it
You
wasn't
did.
just so I wouldn't hurt my feelings. After that, I went through, it was 4 treatments of that and it was every other week. And those were like 4 or 5 hours by the time, they did the infusions. And so a lot of tiredness. Then when they switched me over to Taxol, so my mind wasn't as cloudy, but when I did the first Taxol, I was fine. When I did the second one, all of a sudden, I get this rush. Like all of a sudden, I start to not feel well. Like I started feeling something, and I felt like somebody had lit a match on my face. And
Hmm.
I just felt like I was burning. And then I'm like, oh my God. And so one of the volunteers was standing next to me and she goes, are you okay? And I'm like, no. And so she runs and immediately I had like 7 or 8 nurses by me running to give me, I guess I had an allergic reaction. They gave me Benadryl, but I felt like my face was like if it was swelling up. And I asked, is my face swelling up? And they're like, no, but that's what it felt like. And so that was kind of scary. That's why they give you Benadryl before. So what they had to do was they had to give me a double dose of Benadryl. And if you've never had an Benadryl through the IV, okay,
It
it
hits
is
you
like,
quick. One.
I mean, you go from talking to slurring your words,
Yep.
it's like it was like, wow, what I couldn't even talk. So,
No, I
oh,
definitely have heard of like people having reactions like that because you said you had it the first time and you were
yeah, the
fine,
first
and
time
now
I was
you had
fine.
it the second time and you're getting a weird reaction to it.
And and that's the whole thing with like, and I guess that's the same case um, with any type of, medicine or anything. Sometimes, you take it and you won't feel the effects, but then the second time you'll feel it, and the third time it'll be worse, and like
Hmm.
that. And so that's what happened with me with that. And then the other thing that I got was I started to get a lot of neuropathy pain, especially in my legs.
Mhm.
That was very, very painful. And I had 4 treatments of those as well.
That doesn't sound like fun. So you did
No.
the chemo.
Yep, I did the
You
chemo,
What was
and
the next
then
step?
the next step was, the mastectomy.
The big
I made the decision when I spoke to my surgeon. I asked him what what his recommendation was, and he's what was his plan, is what I
one.
said.
Mhm.
What is your plan? And he says, well, we're going to remove the right breast. And I said, well, if you're going to remove the right breast, then I want you to remove the left one.
Mhm.
And he said, okay. He was fine with my decision. And, that's a very personal decision. Everybody needs to do what they're comfortable with.
Mhm.
The reason why I decided to remove what, everyone would consider a healthy breast is because they had already told me with that second MRI that I was going to have to come back in 6 months and get it checked out. And I
Mhm.
really didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go, I didn't want to go back, have one surgery to remove it and go back 6 months later and have the possibility of having to have another one removed. I was like, if you're going to do one, you're going to do both.
Might as well,
And
yeah.
yes. And so he asked me if I wanted reconstruction, and I told him no. Again, very personal decision. Nobody can help you make that decision, not even your husband. I
No.
tried. I asked him. He says, honey, that is your body. I cannot tell you. And I was like, yeah, but I just want to make sure that I'm making the right decision. And he's like, I can't do that for you. Only you know. And as hard as that may seem, he's absolutely right. Like, it's my body. If I want to, if I would have wanted to do the reconstruction, he was fine, and he was fine the fact that I decided not to. Maybe if I had been younger, my
Mhm.
decision would have been different. I had just turned 50. Not that that's old. I know I'm still a spring chicken, but
Right.
anyway. I just turned 50. I, obviously wasn't planning on having any more children. And I just felt that I did not want to go for additional surgery. I know that the additional surgery, I mean, not everybody can do the reconstruction right away, which would have been the case for me anyway. The
Mhm.
doctor said, if you had decided on doing a reconstruction, I would have you wait probably about a year before I would have it. That was my case. That's not everybody's case. There's some women who get, their breasts removed and they automatically get implants. There's some women that, get their breasts removed and they automatically get expanders in. The thought of getting like something like expanders and having my skin stretched and all that stuff, it just, to me, it was like, I don't need breasts that bad.
It
you
doesn't
know?
sound appealing. It sounds
No,
frustrating.
it does not sound appealing at all. I was like, no, yeah, no, I'm good. Remove them both.
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds frustrating, like having to go through that process. And you're already going through multiple doctor's visits and now you got to go through it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Um,
personally I would probably do the same thing if it was
yeah.
me. Take them. I'm done.
When you have the surgery done, the thought, like the day before, I was sitting there thinking, wow, like I'm actually going to have like a part of my body removed.
Mhm.
And I was like, I was wondering how I was going to feel. My scar is very, very long.
Mhm.
That's not the case for everybody.
Mhm.
Sometimes people, when they have their mastectomies, they just have like 2 scars, one on each side of where the breasts were. I had large breasts.
Mhm.
And so I want to say it was because of that, but my scar goes from underneath my right in the beginning of like the back part, right when you start to get to the underarm,
Mhm.
all the way straight across over to the other side.
Mhm.
It is longer, like it goes more into the back on the right side, which is where I had the cancer.
Mhm.
I also had lymph nodes removed from my right side. I don't know how, or maybe like 13, 14 or more
Mhm.
removed. And then I only had a couple removed from the left side. Because of that, one of the things is when you do have lymph nodes removed, you, for the rest of your life, have to just watch out that you don't get lymphedema, which
Mhm.
is another
One
gift that
thing.
keeps on giving, right?
If
Not
it's
good
not
gifts
one thing,
either.
it's another.
Yeah, it's not the good gifts either. So that's one thing, that you have to be careful with, is taking care of the sides. Another thing is when you have lymph nodes removed, you can no longer have blood pressure checked on that side,
Informed.
which means if you have lymph nodes removed on both sides, you have to find other alternatives for blood pressure. You also cannot get needles on that side. So,
Mhm.
it's a lot of things that you have to endure. And I know a lot of women who get that lymphedema immediately, which is a very painful
Mhm.
condition. And you also get what's called cording. And so I've had like mild cording where it feels that it's called cording because it feels like you feel
A
like it's
cord.
stretched and like it's a cord. And it can be painful. And so there's
Mhm.
just massages that can be done to help with that. The stitches, I didn't have stitches. I had
Uh-huh.
staples. I had
Staples.
staples. Okay. I don't know. There must have been over 150 or 200. I don't know. There were a lot of staples. Maybe it was less, but I mean, there were a lot of staples. It wasn't, the staples were not bad. When they took
Mhm.
them out, it really, I was expecting, I'm a chicken anyway. The nurse was like, "Am I hurting you?" I'm like, "No, I'm just nervous, okay?" I'm a
I'm
chicken. I'm
scared.
sorry, I'm a chicken.
You're about to
Um,
pull staples out of my body.
Now, what was horrible was the bulbs that they put. They put like these lines. They're like these plastic line and then these bulbs at the end, and that is to collect any excess like liquids and stuff from your body after the surgery. Well, I had four of them.
Mhm.
Okay. So those were probably worse. The scars were worse for that than it was painful. It was
Mhm.
worse in that it was painful, more painful than the actual scar for the
Surgery.
mastectomy, being that big too, that long, because I had a lot of numbness in that area.
Mhm.
But those bulbs, those little suckers, yeah, no,
Well, if I remember correctly, they're called J bulbs or something. And
yeah,
I remember when I was a tech, CNA, a lot of my patients would have them.
yeah,
And first of all, they're not fun
no,
at all,
no.
especially when you're having to drain them. And you have to be very careful because if you pull them the wrong way, you can actually pull them out.
Right. And then you can get an infection.
Right.
So you have to be careful. And then you have to measure. That's another
Yes.
thing that I
Yep. You have to
thought
measure
was
the.
so weird and gross at the same time.
Yep.
You have liquid coming out of your body and you have to put it into a measuring cup, like a little measuring thing that they give you at the hospital for
And
you
measure your
to
output.
measure what the output is. You have
Mm-hmm.
to do this at home. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to have these things hanging, I had to have them like pinned to this binder that they gave me,
Mm-hmm.
to help me. Now, when I went to remove those, oh my Lord. Okay. Because they had, in order for you to remove those, yeah, they just pull them. That's
Yep.
it. They pull them right out of your body, and so yeah, that was not fun. The first one was the worst because it was the one on the right, one of the ones on the right side, and it was really in there, and it was probably in the area that was most affected. It was, yeah. I was hoping. I said to the nurse, I said, "Please tell me that you took two of them out at the same time." And she's like,
No.
"No, I'm sorry. I could only take them out one at a time." And I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
So I had three more, but I survived it. It was painful, but I survived. So yeah, the mastectomy was probably not, it wasn't what I was expecting. Another thing is that even though it's a pretty major surgery, they typically send you home the same day. I was
Right.
kind of surprised about that. And, I was told it has a lot to do with the healing process and how you probably heal better at home. And so they send you home. Now, I didn't get to come home that same night only because for the first time, I mean, I've had surgeries before and I never had a problem with anesthesia, but I actually became very sick. Like after it, I was throwing up a lot. And so they kept me extra just in case. So they kept me overnight, but I got to go home the next day, which I was happy about.
I
I mean,
bet.
I was fine being there. I was fine being there overnight only because I wanted to make sure if anything's going to go bad, I wanted to be here and not at home. I want to be here and, have somebody take care of it right away. So coming home and just trying to keep, I would have to do antibiotic ointment on the scar all the time, make sure that kept it from having any type of infection.
Hmm.
So once I healed from that, the next thing was radiation.
Fun times just keeps going.
Yeah. So radiation is every day, Monday through Friday.
Hmm.
I had 28 rounds every day, Monday through Friday. Radiation doesn't take long. Radiation's not painful. It takes longer for them to lay you down the right way, which actually before you get radiation, they do like this mold for you so that you are in the same position every time you go. They also do like these little what they call tattoos. I had never had a tattoo. Now I have three little tattoos, three little dots in my body. The guy that did the tattoos, he was trying to be funny. He's like, no, that's actually a little butterfly. You just can't see it. It's really cute. So they did these little dots, and it's to guide when they're doing giving you the treatment to make sure that you're in the right position every time that you go. Because it doesn't take long. It's really not painful. It's not painful. However, and this doesn't happen to everybody, so please, anybody that listens to this, if they're facing radiation, this does not happen to everyone. Everybody's skin is different. Everybody's body is different. But the longer that I went and was more towards the end,
Hmm.
your skin obviously starts to change because you're basically high frequency burning, it's going on
Correct.
in your body. I started to burn. And towards the end, it was so bad that my skin started coming off. It was coming off. It was like black. And
Ouch.
so and the thing was, it was pretty scary, right? At first it didn't hurt. Like it didn't hurt what happened was I was taking a shower and I went to, like rub underneath my arm on the right side, which is where all the lymph nodes were removed and everything. And so I had numbness there anyway. See,
Hmm.
thank God it was not. All of a sudden, I when I rubbed, I felt something in my hand, and when I saw that my skin had come off, I
Oh
kind of
my god.
panicked. I was like,
Yeah.
I had to hold on to the shower, wall because I became like a little bit nervous, like, oh no, no, like I
What's
wanted to put it
happening?
back, like what's happening? And I was
Yeah.
afraid to look. So for me, radiation was probably worse than having my breast removed. Honestly,
Oh wow. Okay.
I had a miserable time because then a lot of my skin peeled and I was raw, like
Hmm.
red. I spend most of the days without a shirt at home by myself. Even
Hmm.
when my husband was home and when Ariana, my daughter, was home, most of the time after radiation, with my skin peeling like that, I sat around without a shirt at home all day long in front of, who was here? My husband and my daughter. I didn't care. Putting on a shirt was just the worst feeling because I didn't want anything rubbing up against it. The medications that I was given, they gave me like Silverdine.
Hmm.
They gave me that. And that it really helped. It soothed it. But I mean, I had to clean it constantly, put the Silverdine. I had this other like liquid. It was a powder, and you mix it up with water. It was called like Dermaboro, something like that. And so I would alternate. I really didn't want to go anywhere unless I had to,
Hmm.
because I did not want to have a shirt on.
To put
It
on
was
clothes.
it was horrible. It took probably about a month and a half for it
To
to
heal.
finally start to feel better. It was very painful. Again, if you're listening to this does not happen to everybody.
Mm.
It's my story. It's what happened to me. Once I got done with the radiation treatment, one of the things is like when you have your surgery, I had the double mastectomy. Once you have that, because people ask all the time, like, what? Okay, so was your cancer cured? So they can't tell you that your cancer was cured. They consider you NED, no evidence of the disease.
Mhm.
Once you've had like the chemo and the radiation and the mastectomy, all of that. So that I am in remission,
Mhm.
NED. And you're not cancer free unless you're NED for 5 years, and then they consider you cancer.
Okay.
So currently I'm in remission. Some of the things that I missed as I was telling the story, and one of the things that I did get was a genetic testing.
Mhm.
So I got what's called the BRCA test. And basically it's looking for breast cancer. That's where it gets the name from. BRCA,
Right.
BRCA. So, and what that does is a genetic testing to see if you had the gene,
The genes
you
that
know,
carry it.
if you're a carrier.
Mhm.
And which, if anybody's in this journey, I suggest that that is something that you do get. It is very expensive. The most insurances will pay for it, especially if you're going through something or if you have family history of it.
Mm.
And so it came back and I don't have the gene, right? But that doesn't, so if you think about it, what that means is that I had just as much of a chance of getting breast cancer as anybody else who doesn't have the gene,
Mhm.
right? We don't have family history of it. We have
We don't.
other kinds of cancers, but I was the first person on both sides of my family to
Mhm.
be diagnosed with breast cancer. And first, and I am believing the last. Okay. I that's one of the things that I praise God. You gave it to me, I took it, and I hope that not one more of my family members or friends will have to
Mhm.
let me take it. I took it. Okay.
Mhm.
So thankfully I didn't have that. I did have additional, genetic testing done, and I do have some other types of cancers that I need to screen for. Again, that was something that I decided to do. It wasn't something that was recommended. I just made that decision only because, well, if I have this, and if that didn't come out, then what other
What
stuff,
else?
you know?
Yeah.
And so that's the BRCA test. The other thing is that once I got done with all of that treatment, then it was decided also that I needed to do a chemo pill for about 5 to 7 years. And so I take prescription called letrozole daily. So letrozole, that particular medication, for me in the beginning, I really had no side effects and it was great. And what it does is it's supposed to suppress because my cancer, which is another thing that I miss saying, is when you find out your breast cancer, that you have breast cancer, they also try to figure out like what is it that the cancer is being fed by. So there's certain things like progesterone, estrogen, or what they call HER, the HER gene. And so I was estrogen positive. Everything else was negative. So that's another thing. I discovered that breast cancer is not the same for everybody because there are different types of breast cancer and your cancers are fed by different things. That is what determines what the different types of treatment you have. That's why, a lot of times one of the things is like when you're going through something, and I'm sure it's not just for breast cancer, it's for any type of cancer. You have people say, oh, so and so had this type of cancer and that had breast cancer and they were fine, or this person, oh my gosh, they got breast cancer and they didn't make it. Or, well, there's a lot of things that come into factor. Number one is the how early did you catch it, which is why we, especially during this month, we promote breast cancer awareness. And this
Mhm.
is the time where you should remind your family and your friends all the time, not just in October, but it's the time that is recognized as breast cancer awareness. But making sure that you get your mammograms, making sure that you do the self-examinations. There's so
Mhm.
many different things. Know yourself, know your body. And so that if you see any type of changes, breast cancer is not always a lump. Okay. Breast cancer can also be changes in your skin. So you have to examine yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and just see, do you see any type of like dimples going in? Do you see any indentations? Do you see any type of like odd rashes?
Right.
Do you see like almost like like if it was acne, almost like pimples and stuff like that? Do you see any type of discharges from your nipple? There's also like shrinking or like your nipple kind of caving in. Those are all different signs. So it's not just about check for lumps.
Mhm.
Like I say, I had lumpy breasts. If
Mhm.
I found it difficult to do my self exams because I would have probably been in the doctor every single week,
Right.
saying, I have a lump here, I have a lump there. Yeah, we know you have lumpy
Mm.
breasts already. So,
One
so
another
I
thing
found it really
also
difficult.
is
Mhm.
that it's not only women that get
Exactly.
breast cancer. And another thing that
Absolutely.
I had read was that a lot of people have the thought that it's only white women or
Oh
that
no.
get it, and it's like no,
No.
it's evident in the Hispanic culture. It's evident against African Americans as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done any research, and that's what, as you know, Lisa, I am doing more research and just posting different things every day
Hmm.
for the month of October. But I'd be interesting to find out. I would be interested to find out what the statistics are in terms of like race. I mean,
Hmm.
not only race, but also lifestyle, right? Because a lot of times people, here's another thing, when you're going through something like this, people tell you, oh, it's because you eat too much of this or not enough of this, or
Hmm.
you should become a vegetarian, or you should do this or you should do that. And when you get to talk to people who are actually going through it, and you ask those kind of questions like, what do you think of? And I've had I've read many posts from ladies that I was a vegetarian, I was a faithful active person, exercise, athletic, all this stuff,
Hmm.
and I was diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
So while maybe certain foods, certain stuff might affect you, like me, I have to be careful because there are some products that they say, that I really should stay away from some food stuff because my cancer is estrogen. The estrogen is a huge part of it. Is fed by estrogen. I have to be careful with certain things to make
Hmm.
sure that, because I'm taking a suppressant for of that, and I have to make sure that I'm not sabotaging that, right? So I have
Right.
to, but so there's so many factors. Like honestly, I think about it. Cancer does not discriminate. I'm
Right.
telling you
That
right
is
now.
true.
Age is another thing. A lot of times people think that it's women, older women. That is
Hmm.
not the case. There are women in their 20s
Hmm.
are being diagnosed, and some of them have, yes, some of them it's family history, but some of them it's not.
Right.
So right now, the recommended age is 40 and over for mammograms. But I mean, honestly, if they're seeing such more and more younger women, they probably should change that.
Yeah.
You have to be your own advocate. One of the things I did my mammograms, however, in 2016, I missed it, which was the year before I was diagnosed. I didn't say I'm not going to get my mammogram done this year. I was really busy. I didn't make myself a priority, and I completely missed it. I had no idea that I didn't get a mammogram in 2016. As a matter of fact, when I went to get my results and my CDs and stuff, I said to the woman who was taking care of me, I said to her, "Hey, didn't you guys see this last year? Like,
Hmm.
I'm already going on 3. Like, didn't it come up on my last mammogram?" And they were like, "Mrs. Velez, you didn't have a mammogram in 2016, last year.
Hmm.
You had one late in 2015." I was like, "What?" Like, I missed it. I had no idea. And it's just the busyness of life.
Right.
So I had missed it. So it's really important. I don't know. Had I caught it sooner, I probably wouldn't have had to go through the journey, that I went through. But I didn't. I missed it. And so here I am having to go through everything that I went through.
So you kind of touched on how your life has changed, and since going through the radiation and all of that, you're still taking the you said the chemo, right?
It's a
So
chemo pill.
pill.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that kind of, it's very interesting, and I like how you say that it's becoming more and more younger people as well. I know that one of the things, like the insurances aren't covering it
Hmm.
before the age of 40 years old.
Right.
Because like I asked for it and they kind of looked at me like, what is wrong with you? Like, no, you don't need that. I was like, just in case, just to make sure. I was like, my aunt had breast cancer and that's how they detect. And they're like, no, you're too young, the insurance isn't going to cover it, but if you want to
Hmm.
do it out of pocket, you're welcome to. And I was like, no thanks, I'll wait.
Well, and like I said, that's why doing like the self-examination yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Also, here's the thing. I think one of the things that keeps sometimes women from doing the self-examination is not knowing exactly what to do or what to look for.
Right.
So my suggestion is go talk to your doctor and have the doctor help you to do the examination and show you what it is that you need to look for. And if you feel any kind of like me that had the lumpy breast, like ask them to show you like what is the difference, like
Right.
what am I looking for. And so I mentioned a lot of the things that you can be looking for, changes in your breast that you definitely should report. If you feel funny, and this is for anything, whether it's breast cancer, whether it's any type of illness, if something doesn't feel right, talk about it. Talk to your
Right.
doctor about it. If you have a doctor that doesn't listen to you, find a new one. You have to be your own advocate. It's very, you really have to make sure that you take care of you. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. And if you have to have that a good relationship with your doctor. If you're going through stuff, I suggest you researching like different questions that you should go, because that's like with anything. You go
Mm-hmm.
to the doctor and before you got there you had a million questions, but then the doctor starts talking and you forget to ask your questions. Write them down, bring them with
Mm-hmm.
you. Make sure you get your questions answered. And if your doctor doesn't have the time for you, find another doctor.
Very,
That's my
very true.
suggestion.
Any last advice, last words that you'd like to give to my listeners?
I mean, I've kind of said a lot of stuff in terms of taking care of yourself. Okay. I do want to
Mm-hmm.
share, I do want to say something for people that might know someone that's going through cancer, whether it's breast or any type of cancer, but especially like with breast cancer, there are some stuff that people just automatically they want to say something and they just don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes what they say is not it's not the best thing to say to
Yes.
somebody going through the journey. And so I it's actually something I'm going to post, but especially with breast cancer, right? One of the things is like if somebody decides to get reconstruction, the worst thing that you could say to somebody is free boob job. Okay? Yeah.
Very, very true. Yes.
No, it's not the
It's not.
same. It is not the same. It's not something that anybody would want to choose, right? Even if you get reconstruction and they look, way better than your breasts, ever look,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same. It's not a boob job. And another thing is, I did a poll in my breast cancer awareness group, support group.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted, like, I asked the ladies what was the most important thing that they wish they had had while they were going through the treatment, or as they were going through the treatment. And so a couple of the things that I posted was I told them to list whatever was most important to them. And so I was kind of surprised because I put the list and it was like emotional support, prayer, financial support, rides to treatment, cooked meals, and stuff like that. And the highest one, the number one thing that people wanted and wish they had had or have was emotional support. And that just blew my mind. It blew my mind for so many reasons. I mean, for me, I had a lot of emotional support. The second one was prayer. So that just goes to show like how important it is if you know someone that is going through any type of cancer, not just breast cancer. One of the things that people need is emotional support. One of the biggest things, emotional support and prayers. just be there for them. A lot of things that I hear women say is they stop talking. They come to the online support group and
Mm-hmm.
vent and talk and really talk about the way that, what they're feeling at that particular time, because they don't have anybody to talk to. They're afraid, like, sometimes I guess they're afraid that if they continue to talk about it, people just don't want to hear it. And you know what? Sometimes that is the case, unfortunately. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people just don't, because they don't know how to deal with it.
Right.
So emotional support is very important. Be there for people when they're going through this time, because they need it. They need to get that strength, and sometimes they need you to be strong for them.
No, that's definitely true. I mean, I think that sometimes words are hard to come across. Like you don't know exactly what to say, or
Hmm.
and it sucks because it's like you want to be there, you want to support in whatever way you can, but you just don't know the exact words or the right words to use.
Right.
And no, I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that. That's
You're
definitely
welcome.
important.
I also, one of the another thing that I do want to share is, if you're going through that, find yourself a good support group. See if you can find a support group in your area. If there is anybody in the Riverview, Brandon, Tampa area, Ruskin, those kind of areas. I belong to a support group. They're called My Pink Sisters, and they are just beautiful women. We get together before the whole COVID thing. We were getting together every third Thursday at the Bloomingdale Library. Unfortunately, with COVID, and because when people are going through their treatment, they're susceptible to so many different types of illnesses, and so we have been doing Zoom meetings.
Mm.
But if anybody in the area needs support, if anybody has been diagnosed or is a survivor, or anybody that needs any type of support, the website for our group is mypinksisters.org.
Okay,
Um,
I'll include
so
that in the show description as well.
Yep, mypinksisters.org. And really, it's a great group. We laugh, we cry, we vent, we talk about different types of treatments. We have women who were newly diagnosed all the way to survivors that have survived for a number of years. We're there for each other. It's just a great group. One of the things, don't go through this alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. Find someone that it's safe to talk to. So important. Emotional
Definitely.
support is very important. So,
Definitely. So that's going to bring me, we're going to go ahead and go to my last segment, and that's my Palabras de la Semana. And
mhm.
this is where I will speak on either a Bible verse, a quote, just some words of affirmation that has helped me along my journey and is still helping me along. So I know that you have a Bible verse that you like to use.
I did. It was what I hung on to when I felt myself getting anxious. So Luke 25 was the scripture that, when I felt anxious going through, the treatment, or even thinking about the fact that I was going through breast cancer and what it could mean. Luke 25, I hung on to that. Just, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? I know that it's easier said than done, I guess, is not to worry. Getting a hold of your emotions when it comes to worrying is not easy, but it definitely is necessary. Your mind can wander. Even now, the fact that I am in remission, but it's always in the back of my mind. Reoccurrence can happen. There's no guarantee.
Hmm.
Even if you get a double mastectomy, it doesn't guarantee that the cancer will not return. So it's always in the back of the mind.
Hmm.
And so when I find myself feeling anxious, I think about that verse, and it does bring me comfort. It's like, don't worry about it.
Right.
It's not going to add to your life. As a matter of fact, it's going to take away from your time if you're going to sit there and worry. Get out there and just make memories. Make memories. Spend time with your family. Do things that bring a smile to your face. Go out, look at nature. when you feel anxious. Just look at the beautiful things, right? We can't control how we're going to, end up leaving this earth. We can't control it.
Right.
You may survive, I may survive cancer, and something could happen to me that has nothing to do with cancer. Just get a hold of those emotions and just, make good memories.
I really appreciate you coming on, talking about this. I know it's
Thank
hard to
you.
speak on sometimes.
Thank you for having me, for interviewing me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, mi gente, that's all I have for you guys this week. If you liked what you heard on this week's episode, do me a favor, take a moment to rate and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button while you're there so that you'll be notified when a new episode drops. Have a good week.
Bye bye.